Very warm welcome. You're tuned into Eye on Africa. I'm Rochelle Ferguson, BI. These are the top stories on the continent. The World Health Organization warns that a deadly Ebola outbreak in the DR Congo does have the potential to expand. This as the health agency scrambles to vaccinate thousands of people this month. Following 2 decades of deeply strained relations, France's Emmanuel Macron and Rwanda's Paul Kagame vow to resume cooperation. Also coming up in the programme, we speak to Jude Idada, playwright and filmmaker whose play about Burkina Faso's late President Thomas Sankara is receiving critical acclaim. Well, next, I'm joined in the studio by Jude Idada, a playwright and filmmaker whose play entitled Sankara is receiving critical acclaim, particularly in Nigeria at the moment. Now, the play explores the last 100 years of Burkina Faso's late President Thomas Sankara, a man widely considered to be Africa's answer to Che Guevara. His assassination in 1987 sent shockwaves across the African continent. Jude Idada, thanks very much for speaking to us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
A first question, when it comes to this play, what was it about Sankara and this revolutionary icon that prompted you to write the play?
First and foremost, it was epochal to show the Nigerian youth and African youth that there was actually a leader that espoused all we have wanted, what we have asked for, that renaissance of African values, African vision and all of that. And it was sad that he was assassinated, but I thought that I had to bring it back to the consciousness of Africans that yes, we had a leader that was like that. This was why he was killed. These were the lessons we should learn. And these are the steps we can take to keep that dream alive and bring the African renaissance.
Why particularly, Jude, the 100 hours, the last 100 hours of his life?
Yeah, because that's the intrigue that has always, bedeviled the commentary that concerns him, is that there was rife speculation that there was going to be an assassination, that the West, in collusion with local elements, were going to take him out. And everybody was always bedeviled by that concern that why didn't he do anything? And I interrogated that thinking, and then I came to the conclusion that he did that, or he sat back and allowed himself be assassinated to be a martyr, because as a martyr, the Renaissance will live. In his word, as he always said, he said you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill his ideas. And I think Sankara, he achieved that to a great extent, and that's why we see 20-something years after he died, people thought he was forgotten, but then the youths of the people, the Burkinabes who saw him as a leader, the youths who did not even see him as a leader, they rose up and they removed Blaise Compaoré.
It's about reminding people who he was and actually the power that this particular icon had. Talk us through, because this play has been playing recently in Lagos. What kind of reaction did it garner there?
It was incredible. I was concerned, first and foremost, because what we see in the African art scene is a lot of comedy, a lot of laughter. And I was concerned that if I brought something that was serious and epochal, would the people accept it? And I was just amazed at the reception. People were enthused, they were inspired, they were motivated, they were empowered. They were like, wow, there was a leader like that. Yes, some of them had heard about Sankara, but they didn't know his story, they didn't know his vision, they didn't know the message. And then now everybody is saying in Nigeria that before we cast that vote, we ask those important questions. Are you Sankarian, or are you just, a lapdog coming to do the same thing all over again, as in impoverishment, corruption, and all of that kind of stuff? So yes, the reception was incredible, and I'm so happy that we had the courage to put it there, the vision to run that distance, and that temerity of concern of the arts that brought us to.
If we think a little bit about the politics that Sankara stood for, certainly his foreign policy, it was about getting Africa out of debt, about anti-imperialism. Those are values that still exist today. Are they present enough on the African continent?
Well, sadly, they are not, because we see there's this dependence culturally, economically, politically. We always seek validation of the West, and that's what he was saying, that it should be Africa for Africa, it should be us for ourselves first. We should harness our resources for the African Renaissance, as it were. We should do what is necessary for us to attain independence on all levels before we look to the West, so that the West treats us as an equal partner. But when we continue that relationship of dependence, asking for foreign aid and all of that stuff, we definitely wouldn't develop as we want to develop. So yes, we see some leaders now, Paul Kagame, and the issues they had with the United States as regards second-hand clothing. That was what Sankara would have done, saying that, look, I prefer the local textile industry to grow than to allow my people keep importing second-hand clothes, because second-hand clothes, once they came, they obviously affected the local industry. So yes, there was, will I say him, and then we'll say Nelson Mandela, and the things he did where he stood for people who've stood by South Africa during the fight for apartheid, even when the United States called them the enemy, like Cuba. And he said, look, I wouldn't forget the people who stood by me when it wasn't popular to be stood by. So yes, there are leaders there, here and there. We saw the great, it was viral on the internet where the president of Ghana spoke very courageously to the president of France about what it meant to be a new African in the new current dispensation. So yes, there are some leaders.
Well, I mean, Sankara has wrapped up in Lagos, so anyone who didn't get a chance to see it then, they'll have to wait until it's on again. Where can people see the play next?
Well, Sankara will be going to Kigali, to Rwanda in July to be shown there. And then we have it in Toronto, Canada. We're speaking to theatre producers in Ghana. It's also going to be there. And then it's going to go to Abuja in Nigeria. So those are the 4 cities for now that will have Sankara.
OK, Jude Idada, you're a playwright and a filmmaker. Thanks so much for your time on France24.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, stay tuned. More international headlines coming up right here. You're watching France24.